Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, kind of at the end of the day here. Beautiful lighting actually. We're looking at the Raleigh Tokul IE. This is a 2018 model. It is out of season, but I wanted to review it because I love the way this thing looks. It's actually the complement to the iZip E3 Peak Plus, and they called it Peak Plus because it has plus size tires. In this case, we're looking at 27.5 by 2.8, so right in the middle. There's 2.6, 2.8, and 3.0. That's the plus range. You do have boost hub spacing, so 110 millimeters up here versus 100, 148 in the rear, and that gives you a sturdier bracing angle, and it helps to support the weight and the width of these tires. They give you great traction, stability, and I'm actually running them at a little bit lower PSI right now, so there's a lot of comfort too. It does have a pretty nice suspension fork. This is the RockShox Judy. I think it's like 100 millimeter travel. I was kind of measuring that. It's actually 120, the full stanchion length, and you'll notice that these are black anodized 30 millimeters, so they're not 32, 34. It's a little bit narrower, but it's still a nice fork. It's got compression lockout. It's got rebound at the bottom there, and it's also got air pressure, so of course you can sag that. It's a little bit lighter than some of the other like spring forks, a little bit nicer here. Tapered steering tube, 1.1 to 1.5 inches, and through axles front and rear. So 15 millimeter through axle up front, 12 millimeter in the rear. Really nice little slap guard right here. Of course, with Bosch, you've got that aluminum alloy chain ring guard, so the chain won't derail as easily, and maybe your pants and stuff will slough over that. We've got a really nice aluminum alloy skid plate down here. It is vented, so that's gonna help to dissipate heat, but at the same time protect this. This is a hardtail, very trail capable, even mountain, some mountain kind of cross country. It's a nice bike, you know. You look at the tires and stuff, we've got the good tread. The gearing here, by the way, 4th of July is coming up, so we might hear some interesting noises in the background. The gearing in the back is 11 to 42 teeth. It's a pretty good range here with Shimano Deore derailleur, and it's got this like one-way clutch, so in the down position, shifting is going to be easier, and it's going to be easier to maneuver that if you have to take the rear wheel off and maybe replace a flat tire or something like this. These are 50 millimeter rims, by the way, 32 hole, so it's fewer spokes, but they're nice. They're black. We've got black hubs. This whole bike is blacked out, and I love these aluminum alloy Wellgo platform pedals, extra large with the fixed pins, very comfortable. So that one-way clutch, when we put it in the up position, it's going to reduce chain bounce and slap, but you'll notice how close the chain is. We aren't even in the highest gear, and that's because it's got that proprietary 18-tooth chain ring up there from Bosch. That thing spins at 2.5 revolutions for every crank revolution, and that's the way the Performance Line motors have been built. It's responsive, it's fast, it provides a mechanical advantage for the motor, but there is like a reduction gearing, a little bit of a drag. So if you're pedaling this without any assist, or you're trying to top that 20 mile per hour top speed, this is a class 1 electric bike, there's a little bit of drag. It's not a huge deal, but there's also a little bit more noise produced by this motor. So for me, at about 8.8 pounds and with a slightly wider Q factor, there are some trade-offs from Bosch, but the reliability, and especially with their battery packs and their displays, is really quite good. This bike frame comes in 2 different sizes. We're looking at the size medium right now, and again, just look at that top tube. It like carries right into those chain stays. Love that they've got rack bosses here, so you could turn this into a commuter during the week and then maybe hit the trails during the weekend. It's a perfect like all-in-one platform, in my opinion. Like, I really like this thing. 350 millimeter seat post, 31.6 millimeter diameter, so you could swap that out with like a suspension post that we see over here. I did cover this more in season. This is the Lure IE, and Sam, who is hanging out with me here from the Electric Bicycle Center just down the street, this is something that you added, the SR Suntour NCX, right?
Yeah, that's a very popular upgrade. Along with the seat, we put a nice surface seat on there as well.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to see that. Like, again, this is a little bit more urban oriented. It's got the Supermoto X tires versus over here we got the Kenda Havocs. You know, but you look at the bikes, kind of go back and forth. They're fairly similar. This one actually has the speed motor, so that's, you know, going to take you a little bit faster if you're a commuter. This one, a little bit more trail ready and legal on more trails, especially in California. We've got locking grips. We've got hydraulic disc brakes, 3-finger Tektro Orion disc brakes levers. 180 millimeter disc brake rotors, front and rear. And in the rear, we have dual piston calipers, and up front, we have quad piston. They're blocked by that bush because this does not have kickstand or kickstand provisions. So you're always going to be like leaning it up against something or getting one of those wonky like aftermarket ones. I feel like that's an area where Raleigh could improve this. But I like the overall look. Again, nice internally routed cables in some spaces. We've got the charging port down there, and it's pretty well protected. I think there's like a rubber grommet that can stuff in there, but perhaps it got lost. I'm not sure if it had a leash or something. It might have gotten broken, or if it didn't have a leash, that's why you want one. 175 millimeter crank arm, so a little bit longer, and maybe that's easier to do on a bike like this. It's sort of cross country where you want to get those big pedal strokes in, but you're not worried about collision and like maybe pedal strikes, crank arm strikes. 27.5 by 2.8, that's pretty, that's a pretty sizable wheel. You're getting a lower attack angle, higher air volume. This is sort of the popular size that emerged after 29ers were popular. So it was like 26 was always mountain bike, and then 29, and now sort of settled at 27.5 as being pretty popular. It's just it's a cool bike. Again, my goal was just to highlight this thing and support people who might be finding this used secondhand at maybe a garage sale or at a dealer. Like, this is still on your showroom floor. Yeah. Sometimes they trickle down to you because you're local in California, and Raleigh has been as well, Raleigh Electric.
Yeah, so I'm more focused on selling the high bikes. And when we ran out of the hardtail high bikes from 2017 and 18, I was asking my rep, like, what can I replace those with? And he goes, check out the Raleigh. And I was like, all right. We started bringing them in. We especially were selling the Deore, and then we started carrying this model. And the great thing about having a bike like this as well is being Bosch powered, you've got a little added security with this that I don't know if a lot of dealers are doing this. And I'd say about 90% of the bikes that are showing up to our store that was bought somewhere else, where they bought them from, they never added their name or phone number into the bike, which you can do through doing a firmware upgrade. So I'm putting that out there to all the dealers that have sold these bikes. Start putting your customer's name and phone number on the specification page next to the key code. You can add that in there. And if their bike is stolen and it ever gets a firmware upgrade later on, that person's name and phone number will come up.
How interesting. That's a really interesting, and that's sort of stealth. So someone who's maybe stolen the bike or sold it secondhand, it's a bummer if you buy a bike like this secondhand and it ends up being stolen, but at least it's a way for people to check it out. There's another big benefit of Bosch, which is that these batteries are interchangeable. So the Powerpack 500 over here, it's got that higher capacity versus the Powerpack 400. So this one's slightly lighter at 5.4 pounds versus roughly 5.7, 25% less power in this one, but you're still getting good range. This is the high torque motor from Bosch. This is the Performance Line CX, up to 75 Newton meters of torque. It's rated like, is it 250 to 570?
That sounds about right.
Because the speed motor, they say 350. They're all kind of 250 watt motors.
It's coming
European
from Europe,
spec.
and they're, we're getting that trickle down effect of innovation technology from Europe, and over there by law it can't be more than 250 watt.
But really, it's plenty in most circumstances. These bikes have, this drive system has won some of the racing events.
It's awesome, and you will be amazed when you go and hit the hills with these drive systems, and they're reliable. If you do have any issues, or you get an error code, you can always take it into the dealer and get that firmware upgrade done, check out what the issues are, clear them out, and add your name and phone number in there.
Is Magura still like their service partner in the US?
No. So that just within the last few months, they've switched over now, and there's a two-tier system. As a dealer, I first call tier 1. I think they're out of Florida, and if it goes to tier 2, then it'll end up down here in Irvine with Bosch themselves.
Yeah,
so
and
it's more in-house now.
They just got a new base in Irvine too.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Coming back to a bike that can do a lot, but still pretty comfortable. The price point on this has dropped a little bit. I think the MSRP was around $29.99, and I'm not gonna say anything about how much it drops because each dealer, that's really up to them. And again, if you're getting this used, you definitely pay less than $29.99. It's just, a little bit older technology, and when they move on to the next generation of bikes, I still think this was, for me, it was one of my favorite looking bikes. Just look at that motor, how it's like tipped up and it's integrated in the frame. It's all black with these gray, white, and even silver accents. It's just beautiful. We've got flat bar, swept back a little bit, those nice brakes that I talked about before, and then the display. I'm gonna get into that in a second, but before I do, let's talk about that motor again. So we've got a magnet here, and a speed sensor right there, as well as cadence sensor and a torque sensor, and it's listening to all three of those signals over 1,000 times per second. And Bosch has some of the best sensors in the market, so it starts and stops very smoothly. It doesn't feel like as abrupt as some of the other bikes. There's even an EMTB mode that's more torque reliant, so you don't have to worry about changing assist levels while you're riding, and there's shift detection built in. So the motor controller system's measuring like your pedal pressure, and it's measuring like the shifter pressure. And when you shift gears, it's designed to ease off a little bit so that the chain and those cog set back there, that the sprockets don't get bent, the teeth and everything will hold up better long term. The Bosch system is usually just a 1x like this. I don't think I've seen any 2xs. Shimano, I don't know if Shimano has 2x, but Yamaha does, definitely.
Yeah, not as much as they used to, though. I noticed that the Yamaha themselves do, but I noticed that Easy Motion and even High Bike, they've gone down to a 1x on the front on a lot of their Yamaha powered bikes.
It's just simpler, especially when you have a high torque motor. So that motor, it's going to burn through the battery a little bit faster, and again, the limited capacity on that. This motor, the speed motor, it's also going to burn through that Bauer a little bit faster, because whenever you're above 20 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour, that air resistance really starts to take a bit more work. So both of these bikes might end up getting similar range, which to me is kind of interesting. It depends on how you ride, where you're going, the tire pressure. Right now, my tire pressure is a little bit low on these, again, for comfort. But then the steering, like, you feel it. It feels a little, you know, I probably want to fill this up a little bit more for riding on the street, get kind of efficient. Yeah. What's that word called, Sam, where you're like having to oversteer or push?
Yeah, it's just the steering feels a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
And tire pressure is critical. That's probably, you know, like customers ask me all the time, like, what do I got to do? And there's 3 things I tell them: charge your battery, keep your tire pressure up, and keep your chain lubed, and I'll see you when you get a flat tire.
Right. Yeah, and if you go too low, you're gonna get like a pinch flat, which is where there's the rim here, 15mm rim, and then the tire squishes down and it actually pinches the inner tube against the rim walls, and it's like a snake bite, so 2 holes.
Hey, not only that, Court, but when you have low tire pressure, it starts affecting the performance, which is what you were alluding to earlier, and it affects your range as well.
Yeah.
So I can't hammer it down more to the customer. Keep your tire pressure at and check your tire pressure. It's very important on e-bikes especially.
And I list all of that information back at Electric Bike Review, and that's part of the reason that the site is so useful, and it's why I spend so much time. I weigh this myself, I think it was 1 or 2 pounds on the overall bike here with the battery on it. A lot of times the manufacturers like kind of estimate a little lower than that, and their range can be a little bit off. The tire pressure, they don't list that at all in most cases. And what happens, even Reese and Mueller, you know, some of these really fancy brands, they don't list stuff like that. And over time, I mean, this is hard enough to read. It says max ride pressure 25 psi, 1.5 bar. Okay, so over time that gets dusty and worn off, and you just don't know, and that's kind of a bummer. Or if you have bad eyesight, it's a lot easier to go on your phone. So I'm really trying to make this useful for you guys. That's why I'm reviewing a bike that's basically out of season, because I'd never reviewed it before. And one other call out here, you get this nice 4-amp charger from Bosch. This is one of my favorite chargers on the market. Weighs like 1.6, 1.7 pounds, and it puts out 4 amps. So it's a little bit faster. You're gonna fill that battery in no time, because it's just a great, you know, lightweight solution. You toss this in my bag, buddy?
Yeah, you got it.
I think that's about it. I'm gonna hop on this thing and let you see the motor and stuff. I do have like a Bosch Performance Line CX like specific guide in the forums. I've got a comparison tool back at the site, so you can compare this back to back with the iZip E3 Peak Plus. That's sort of the sister bike, because both of these companies are part of the Excel group. This is Raleigh and iZip. They also, there's High Bike, there's iZip, they have Diamondback, Torker, LaPierre.
You know, the point I want to make here is we're in mid-19, Court. I've still got this bike on my showroom floor.
Yeah.
That means there's a lot of other dealers that still have this bike on the showroom floor.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at a 2018 model that's still on somebody's showroom floor in 2019, it's time to make a deal.
It is.
Come on in, and they're making deals because they got discounted prices on these bikes more than likely. And if you talk to that dealer and they've still got that bike in stock, you're going to get a great deal.
And you got that expo coming up. Once a year, Sam has this expo. So if we get this video out in time, I mean, it's a lower priority video because, you know, there's other 2019 stuff. But in August 20,
August 24th. But this isn't a self-promoting thing. I'm telling all the dealers out there and all the customers out there, go to your local dealers, see if they have any 18 models left over, and make a deal with them.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, man. You know, and get out there on that electric bike and enjoy it.
And a lot of dealers have events and stuff like that. We've been sending Mikey out to different dealers, getting the inside scoop. And my goal is just to, you know, cover this stuff efficiently and work with people that I trust who are not as self-promoting and just out there to have fun. Please comment below if you have anything to add, any feedback since this bike's been out for a while. Correct me if I missed something or whatever. And of course the forums back at EBR as well. I'm gonna hop on this thing.
Cool.
And actually I'll show you the display. Almost forgot. So this is the Purion. Not my favorite display from Bosch because it's not removable like the Kiox or the Intuvia. And it's got this micro USB port, but it's not active. That's only for diagnostics, and that really bums me out because I like to have my phone or maybe a light or something if I'm going to use this for commuting and I want to tap into the battery. Even though it's a 400 watt, it's interchangeable. You can actually use the 500, and that's one of the cool things about Bosch. They use the same mold, so it's backwards and forwards compatible. There's a power button on top. We could swivel this if we want to reduce glare, and look at that nice backlighting. This is just the perfect time of day. You can see it glowing faintly in white, and you can't adjust that up or down. It's just sort of always on like that, is my understanding. Speed, miles per hour. Assist level, it's an off right now, but as soon as we press plus or minus, it'll cycle through the other levels. And then 5 bars on that battery infographic, which, you know, that could be better. It'd be nice if it was 10 or maybe even a percentage. So each one of these boxes, it just represents 20% step, which is a pretty big step. Okay. The cool thing is that if you hold minus, it actually cycles to other menus. So we got trip distance, total distance, and then range. And range helps to make up for that battery infographic by giving you a more precise readout. So in eco mode, the lowest, it says 46 miles based on the last mile of riding, which incorporates the tire pressure, the wind, how hard I'm pushing, like all that stuff. It's very dynamic. We go all the way up to turbo. Now it says 14 miles, so you get a real sense for like, okay, I think I live 20 miles away. I'm going to take it down to EMTB mode. And 17, okay, let's take it down again. Tour mode, 23 miles. Okay, good. I should be good. And you just keep an eye on that as you're riding. EMTB mode, that's the mode I was talking about before, where it still measures all those signals, but it relies a little bit more on torque. So if you're in precarious terrain, which mountain bikes often are, you can just ease through those pedals and the bike's not gonna like zip out of control. But when you really need it, you start climbing, it's gonna be there for you. It gives you full range of support. Again, 75 Newton meters max, which is pretty great. If you wanna change from miles per hour to kilometers per hour, you hold minus and tap power. And it's as easy as that. If you want to clear your trip stats, you hold plus and minus. And if this had lights built in, you would hold the plus button, but it does not. You can still see the little light icon though, which is sort of a fun thing. And then there's walk mode. It's the button on the bottom. So imagine that you do get a flat tire and you're trying to get into Sam's shop to get some help. You could make sure you're in one of these 4 levels of assist, press the minus button, and off you go. Oh wait, I messed that up. What you do is you press the walk mode button and then hold plus. There we go, that's it. That's what I was hoping for. You know, each system is a little bit different, and some companies like disable walk mode for the United States or different markets. And so it's good to test these things, and that's another reason why dealers are nice. You get a chance to do that. And I should point out, it's got ABIS locking core, which is really nice, and these great keys, but they are not the kind that can be key-to-like. We do not have a bottle cage mounting provisions here. The rack would sort of help with that. And again, lack of kickstand bosses, that's a real miss, especially for a hardtail.
I have something else to add too here, Court. The sun is just set, and as a biker, we always used to get bugs in our teeth because we're always smiling. Well, as a bicyclist, you get bugs at the back of the throat. So during the bug hour, always keep your mouth shut. And I know you're going to be breathing hard, even though it's an electric bike, but try to keep your mouth shut. When that sun sets, or about an hour, when all the bugs come out, keep your mouth shut.
Should I read between the lines here, Sam? Are you trying to tell me something?
Hey, that's a pro tip I'm giving right there.
It's a pro tip. It's keeping these teeth white. Okay, so I'm in turbo mode. Let's do it. Super responsive, and it does have high pedal cadence support, up to 120 RPM. So let's max this thing out. Well, I can't. I'm actually up to about 20 miles per hour, and you can exceed that, but the motor's gonna stop. And with these heavier, low pressure tires right now, I can't do it. I'm gonna have to shift gears. downshift, and I love that it has multi-shifting and two-way triggers. This is really good. So let's try this again. And there we go. So we maxed out at 20 again, higher RPM. You could hear the motor like zinging a little bit. This motor, it's got a nice kind of a happy tune that it sings when you're at those higher RPMs and the higher assist levels. It's a little bit masked by these big tires and their big knobs. Let's take it up again, maybe to an even lower gear. Now we'll really show you. Pretty cool. So you saw how fast I was pedaling, and yet the motor pretty much kept up to 120 RPM. That's a big highlight for the Performance Line series from Bosch. The steering is pretty stable, especially if you've got some momentum because of those bigger tires. But, you know, there's a little bit of tip, and some of that's because of the pressure right now, and maybe just the head tube geometry, maybe the bigger tires and stuff. There's a little bit of tippiness that starts to happen on this bike. So I think that's about it. Fun to get out on these two bikes. We went deep. I hope this helps you guys out, even if you aren't buying this bike. Maybe you've got a friend that has it, or you learned a couple things as we went through. Any final thoughts from you, Sam?
No, man, we covered it pretty well for a bike that's kind of out of season. That's great for the people that potentially might be buying it, like you said, secondhand down the line.
Yeah, and you know, feel free to comment here. In the future, my goal is to cover just a range of bikes, stuff that maybe people are really curious about or is really fringe. I'm trying to get like a wide variety of products, and this is just one that I always thought was really cool looking and never got to. So for the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com for the length, width, standover height, all that stuff. Maybe leave a comment if you have a bike that you'd really like to see reviewed that we haven't done yet. Ride safe. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.